When you look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, it's so much clearer now.
What separates a luxury brand from the rest? Is it price, exclusivity, or something deeper, like the psychology of the ultra high net worth individual? Today, we're diving into the luxury mindset with Elizabeth Solaru, an international keynote speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, and leading authority on luxury clients. She's the founder of the Diversity in Luxury Awards and the author of Luxpreneur: How to Start and Build a Successful Luxury Brand. Get ready for an insightful conversation on what it takes to attract and engage the world's most elite clients. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing really good. You know, before we got started, we talked about the weather. So right now, just at this moment, right now, where I am sitting inside, it is really getting warm. It could be the lights. I don't know. But it's getting warm. So no, but it's pretty good. I hear you tell me it's cold in London. So
Yeah.
how long does that last? Just curious.
Oh God. I don't know. It stops. I mean, we try. We have a struggle summer, I think.
Okay.
And occasionally we might get over the top temperatures, but yeah, I think it's going to go a while.
I told you I would love to go to London, so I guess I need to pay attention to the weather forecast and prepare and plan. I can't bring California clothes out there to London. Hey, but in the intro, I did mention a few things about you, but do you mind sharing a little bit about who you are and how you got to be who you are today?
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yes. I'm Elizabeth. And I actually started my career as a scientist. So I was a microbiologist. I worked in a hospital laboratory, and I did that for several years, at least around about 13 to 15 years. And I remember thinking one day, there's got to be more to life than being a lab rat. So I didn't know what to do. So I decided to get another degree, and I did an MBA. So I got my MBA, and I then realized it was actually quite difficult to transition from being a scientist into something completely different. But through the power of networking, I managed it, and I became a headhunter. So I started recruiting. I know, right? So I started recruiting very powerful, high-profile people into chief executive roles, finance director roles, etc. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was able to wing it. So I successfully did that. I lasted several years. And then 2008, the financial crisis hit. We obviously were not getting as many jobs as we should. So I was made redundant. I was laid off. And I just thought to myself, okay, I've reached a milestone age. If I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So I decided to set up my own company, and that was making cakes. And it was making cakes. And I soon realized, oh my God, I need clients, and I need a certain type of client. So I set out getting those clients. And one of my early encounters was making cold calls, because when I was a headhunter, we were told to make 100 cold calls a week to try and get meetings with chief execs, etc. So I was just making cold calls. I took the yellow pages. In those days, we didn't, social media wasn't as, so I took the yellow pages and I called every event planner, and I called about 120. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I called this number. The voice at the other end said, hello. I'm like, yes, I'm a cake maker. Gave her the spiel. And she said, oh, we're actually looking for someone to make cupcakes for us. And I said, great, I do exactly that. And I'm going to be in your area in the next 3 days. Can I drop some samples? Again, that was something we were trained to say, I'm going to be in your area. So, and she said, yes, bring. So I dropped the samples, and on my way back, I got a phone call saying, Lady Elizabeth would like to see you. And I'm like, this is a bit strange. Who is Lady Elizabeth? I went back to see her, and she turned out to be Lady Elizabeth Anson, first cousin of the Queen, of the late Queen Elizabeth. And she happened to be the best party planner in the UK. So that's how, so
Wow.
that's how I got one of my first real high-end clients.
Yeah.
And that set me on my path. And yeah, so that's how I came into the luxury space.
Wow. Okay. So scientists,
Yeah.
I wrote it down. Headhunter,
Yeah.
cakes,
Yeah.
right? But what's really cool about that journey that you just described is that you were able to take bits and pieces from each of those experiences or each of those journeys. You pivoted, but you were able to take some of that knowledge from those experiences and apply it to continue your journey forward. You know,
Oh,
I definitely
absolutely.
love that, especially the sales part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll just agreeing with you. Absolutely. Because I think people underestimate how much transferable skills that they
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
So, yeah, so that's absolutely, it's a very important point that you brought up.
And that you mentioned it earlier that it would be difficult for you to go from one thing or pivot from one thing to the next, but you found that way, right? You still were able to use those transferable skills. So that's very, very important. Okay. I got a question for you. You weren't going in looking, were you going in looking for the luxury customer,
No.
the luxurious customer? You
Yeah.
found her. Now, looking back and answering from right now, what's your definition of a luxury mindset? Because I have to believe that you're looking for those high-end luxury clients now. So what's the mindset that you have to have or that you have taking into, that you apply to find these customers or
Um,
clients?
that is a brilliant question. It really is because you literally got to the heart of the fundamental when it comes to selling luxury. So people confuse selling luxury or getting luxury clients with a luxury lifestyle. It's a
Mm,
luxury mindset. That word mindset is so crucial. And actually, in my book, The Luxpreneur, I start with mindset
mm-hmm.
and I identify the 9 different types of luxury brand owners and the mindset you need to have, depending on your type, in
Yeah.
order to get luxury clients. So to give you an example, with
I
me,
like
for
it.
example, when I did my type, I came out that I'm an artisan and I'm a visionary. So
Mm-hmm.
being an artisan means I pay attention to craftsmanship. And being a visionary means that I'm always thinking of the future, possibilities, what can be. However, those advantages also have disadvantages because
Mm-hmm.
being a craftsman or an artisan means that I spend all my money creating beautiful products, all my time, my energy, my passion, I pour into the product. But
Right.
I don't pay attention to the cost. I don't pay attention to selling. I don't pay attention to sometimes even the client because I just want to create what I want to create because sometimes as a craftsman, you're a bit selfish because it's all about
Mm,
you can create and you want to show off what you can create without thinking, how will it be received?
yeah.
Also, as a visionary, I need to be grounded in the present because whether I like it or not, bills need to be paid. Um, I need to get the right space. I need to
Yeah.
meet clients. So that is why the mindset is important. Also, when it comes to mindset, you need to believe that whatever you produce
Mm-hmm.
can command a high price. Now, not everything
Yeah.
expensive is luxury, but everything luxury by the very nature of producing it will be expensive. But when I coach many people, they normally fall short at thinking, but nobody's going to pay that. And I'm like, how would you know until you try? And I give the example of certain luxury brands that we know. Recently was New York Fashion Week, and a couple of weeks ago was Paris Fashion Week.
Okay.
A lot of the couture pieces in Paris Fashion Week or New York Fashion Week, and I mean, I can tell you, maybe only 100 women can afford that, right? Maybe
Right.
100 women in the world. So out of 6 billion people, however many we are in the world, only 100 women can afford those couture pieces. But think about what those designers do. They create theater around it. You have the pre-show, then you have during the show, then you have the post-show. Everything is carefully curated and performed just to sell a few pieces that is shown on the catwalk. And this is not just one designer. This is like many designers.
Yeah.
Well, the point is, if you have to have a luxury mindset, you need to believe that what you are creating is special enough that even if only one person in the world buys it, it's going to be worth your while. So that to me is what a luxury mindset is. And I really applaud you for asking that question, because not many people ask me this question, and it's a favorite question of mine.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hey, so you mentioned, like, I love the definition and I loved your explanation and your perspective. What are some common misconceptions that people have about luxury clients? Because to your point, you're like, well, they're not going to pay that much for this. Like, I mean, it's almost like an untouchable type of segment of buyers, right? For a lot of people. So me saying that's probably a truth statement. But what are some common misconceptions that people have about luxury clients from your experiences?
Okay, so from my experience, and this is one of the reasons that prompted me to write my book. The first one is that they're all the same, or they're just people with money. That is not true. There are 8 different types of luxury clients, so they need to be treated differently. So that's the first common misconception. They're all the same. Secondly, some people assume that, well, they have money, so you can charge anything you want. I think that depends on a number of things. One, you've got to provide value. And 2, it depends on context. So, for example, say you're, I don't know, in a high, maybe exclusive country club or nightclub or restaurant or whatever.
Right.
The bottle of champagne that you can get from a supermarket for, I don't know, $40, $50 can be marked up a lot in a restaurant or a club. And that is because of the context and the environment and the atmosphere, etc., etc. Also, when it comes to luxury clients, they have what I call emotional resonance with whatever you're producing. So be it your product or your service, they already come to you. They're pre-motivated, so you don't have to motivate them. I think a lot of mistakes people make is they have this sales script in their head. They're trying to get through that sales script, overcoming objections, blah, blah, blah. No, I say to people, no, stop. If a client is sitting in front of you, pre-motivated, all you have to do is close the deal. That's literally all you have to do. So for some of them, they want to be able to sit and think. So give them time to sit and think. Some of them, they just want to play around with you. They want to know, okay, you're selling me this product, but how good are you? Are you the best at what you do? Again, this is where mindset comes in. Because if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm just so lucky for them to be here. Oh my God. If you have that mindset, you're not going to sell anything to them.
Right.
But if you come with the mindset of, they're amazing at what they do, I'm amazing at what I do, I'm the subject expert, this is what I do, this is why I do what I do, then great. Also, a number of luxury clients, they want to know about you. They want to know, where are you from? Who are you? Are you just another person, with a handout, wanted to take
Yeah.
their money, or are
Yeah.
you genuinely interested in who they are? So this is where knowing who you are, being honest. If you can't do something, just say, this is not my forte, but I know somebody amazing that can help you. Even things like that really, really help. So again, so many misconceptions about high-end clients. I mean, I've sat around tables with a billionaire, with millionaires, with royal families, and trust me, I've had arguments over £50. Over £50 because I'm not budging, they're not budging. Just
Yeah.
because they have money doesn't mean they don't want to bargain. It doesn't mean they don't want value. But again,
Yeah.
again, it's about the luxury mindset and then you recognizing who they are. And that's why I sat down. I remember sitting down thinking, okay, there are different types. I looked through my old emails and I typed each one, and it was backed by some academic studies because the scientist in me, when I have a theory, I like to
There you
prove
go.
exactly. So again, misconceptions, I can spend days on that. But the most important thing is knowing that you do not treat them the same, and be yourself authentically. They either want to buy from you or they don't want to buy from you.
Yeah.
But even if they don't buy today, they'll remember your honesty. And that's what matters.
Wow, you got a lot of key points in there. One, definitely from a sales perspective. And did you go to a formal sales training, before you or while you were doing the headhunting?
No, not at
I'm just
all.
curious.
Not
Yeah,
at all.
because
I learned on the job, but then
you learned on the job.
when you sit in front of people and you're interviewing them all day, especially chief executives or very high and powerful men and women, when you ask a question, they will answer what they want to answer. Some of them are very polished, they're very sleek. You can tell they've done this 100 times. But when you're interviewing people, you want to get to the truth. You want to know what makes them tick. How do they react under stress? Because people can package and say beautiful things, but then you want to know in a real life situation, you want to know the real them. And the reason you want to know the bad as well as the good is because when you're then presenting them in front of your client who hired you to find someone, because I was a matchmaker, it is like downplaying, somebody's, oh, she's got a pretty face, or or he's not 6 foot tall, but he's he's got a great job. So it's knowing which qualities you play up. So I learned a lot from being a headhunter. And I think some of it, yes, you get sales training, but some of it, when you learn on the job, there are things that sales training can't teach you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think most training works that way. You got to get out there and get that experience as well.
Yeah.
So, but man, I really appreciate how you're connecting different dots. Like I learned this at this stage of my life, and then I took that and I applied it here, and then I took that and I applied it here, and it's been working from where I see very, very well for you. Like you built a luxury brand from scratch with zero contacts. What were the key moments besides the lady, I can't remember her name, but what were the key moments that made it work for you?
Okay, so I'll tell you a couple. So the first one, and it was literally it was simple, and anyone can do it. Anyone with zero money, which is my passion, can do it. So I remember thinking very early on, before I spoke to the lady, but I was getting out there. Very early on, I spoke to one of my delivery drivers that I used to deliver cakes, and he said, "Oh, we leaflet." And I'm like, "What do you mean you leaflet?" He said, his mini cab office, because it's a cab office. I don't know if you know what mini cabs are. In the UK, we have regular cabs, we have mini cabs, we've got Uber. But anyway, his mini cab office, he said,
okay.
He said, we leaflet. And I'm like, what do you mean you leaflet? He said, we put leaflets in people's boxes. And I'm like, oh, so something occurred
Mm.
to me. If I make some beautiful cards of my cakes, would you
Yeah.
be able to put them into the addresses, but they're only the really, private, community gated? And he said, yes, I can do that. So for literally like the equivalent of maybe $20 every week, he would leaflet. Now I know that if he did 1,000 homes, I probably will get maybe 2 or 3 inquiries,
Mm-hmm.
but at least it was targeted. So I made sure he only did places with money, which was very, very important. And
Yeah.
I tried other things as well. But what I found was putting myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once I did a wedding show, and a TV crew came to the wedding show, not to film me or the person next to me,
Uh-huh.
because we were put in the corner, but they came to film somebody else. And
Okay.
then they left. Then they came back. They filmed my neighbor. Then they
Mm-hmm.
left. But then the guy said, I can't get your cakes out of my mind. Would you mind if I film you? And I said, fine, film the cakes. And then
Yeah.
he said, I need to interview you, because it was a TV station called Wedding TV. And he said, what if
Mm.
I interview you about wedding trends? And I thought, oh my God, okay, what do I know about wedding trends? So I just said something. I, gave him a list. I started, da, 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 da. And then
Uh-huh.
I found that what he liked, it wasn't so much my content. It
Mm-hmm.
was my ability to tell a story. And so I
Mm.
wasn't just saying, oh, you do that, but I was able to weave certain stories, certain trends together, make it understandable. And he
Yeah.
loved that. So
Yeah.
again, that was another thing that really took me from a relative unknown to being on TV programs. So if people
Mm.
have a gift for writing, storytelling, whatever it
That's it.
is, that truly helps.
Mm. You know what? Let me pat myself on the back. I like the storytelling element. As a matter of fact, I was putting together. It's not anything for anybody outside of where I'm my working at, but my team. I'm putting together a storytelling course, and we're gonna walk through the process and what I'd look for in storytelling, right, or in your stories. So, the reason why I'm saying this is because stories are can be really captivating. You know what I'm saying? And they can draw people in. And I love just listening to you tell the story. They came to film, not me, someone else, not my neighbor. You
Yeah.
drew me in. You drew me in. And then they came back and I'm thinking they're going to film her. No, they filmed my neighbor. You know what I mean? And then they left and then they came back. Like that story, it really drew me in. And in the end, it shows, it gave you an opportunity, and then you told a story to them, and that's what captivated them. That was actually pretty brilliant, and you did it in a couple minutes. So I definitely understand your power with telling the story, and it is such a powerful thing. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think storytelling is from your perspective?
I when it comes to luxury brands, I think a
Yeah,
10, and that's
yeah,
because every time, if I show you a logo, so if I show you two C's, intertwined back to back, if I show you two C's, you already know what the brand is without me saying.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You already know the brand. If you see that particular logo, you know the brand, and you also have what I call there's an emotional pull
Mm-hmm.
towards that brand. Even if it's not a brand you can afford now, you already
Yeah.
think, oh my God, it's high end, it's expensive. It's the way luxury brands, the really successful ones, they know how to tell a story. So the brand
Mm.
I talked about, the two C's with the logo, Coco Chanel. She was dumped in an orphanage by her dad when she was 10. She was
Mm.
taught to sew by nuns. And when she left, she didn't go straight into making clothes. She
Uh-huh.
actually became a cabaret singer, but she wasn't a very good cabaret singer.
Mm.
In fact, there was one particular song. Every time she sang the song, all the soldiers will be like, oh my God, is that Coco woman again? because the song she sang had the words Coco in it. So that's how she got the
Mm.
nickname Coco Chanel. But she took that nickname that some people would have felt insulted by,
Mm-hmm.
actually turned it into a brand. And again, when you think of her perfume, number
Mm-hmm.
five came about because she was sick and tired of the usual floral perfumes. So she said to the guy who created her perfume, she said to him, I don't want anything floral. I want something different. Use aldehydes and blah, blah, blah. And the guy came up with a number of perfumes. And according to legend, we don't know if it's true or not, the
Mm-hmm.
fifth bottle that she smelled was the one she fell in love with.
I want
So,
number 5. Yeah.
number, so that's my point about storytelling
Yeah.
in luxury. And I can take another example, Gucci, for example, Gucci or Gucci. Gucci or
Mm-hmm.
Gucci, he left his home in Italy when he was 17 and he came to England to work at the Savoy Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked there as a porter, as a young boy who was handling luggage. And the legend has it that it was while he was handling the luggage of the rich and wealthy that
Okay.
he noticed the design, the craftsmanship, and the elegance. So when he left the Savoy in his mid-20s, he went back to his home country. He came from a family of leather makers and he started creating beautiful
Mm.
leather goods. So
Yeah.
again, each brand has a story that you can connect with, the underdog story,
Right.
the rising above your circumstances story, the creating something beautiful, something unique, which we can all identify with. And that is one of the essence of storytelling.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff. I'm tempted. You told it to me already, but I'm tempted to ask you what's your story. You feel me? And because you told it, but you gave me you didn't really sink it like their story, right? You gave me the steps. Do you have your own story on how
Yeah,
you would
I do.
what's yours? How would you sell me on your story? I like.
My story is born in the UK, taken back to my parents' country, Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
when I was about 10. I loved baking, but nobody baked in my family. In fact, in many African homes in those days, the oven was used for storage. So I
Mm.
used to take my mother's old pots, I would hide them under my bed, and I would use those to bake. But then I got to a certain age, and being from a background where education was highly prized, there was no way I would tell my parents I want to become a baker. And because I was good at sciences, they said, become a microbiologist. So, I studied microbiology, did my master's in microbiology, and then came back to the UK and had different careers before I became a cake maker.
Yeah.
There are other stories I could weave in as well, of
Yeah.
tragedy, of loss, etc.,
Mm.
etc. However,
Right.
for the purposes of obviously this podcast, I'm not going to go into detail, but if you notice a lot of luxury brand stories, they talk about the person being an underdog, but they don't give you too much sadness. They kind of like,
Mm.
that part is not exactly covered, but is not highlighted as much as
Yeah.
she rose out of nothing and she became this and she became that.
Right.
But many stories, especially if you're a woman of color and if you're a person of color, we
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of trauma and we have a lot of stories that we can share. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't tend to want to share that side of us because, unfortunately, a lot of our trauma has been monetized. Our bodies have been monetized, our
Yeah.
trauma monetized. So that is a place we don't often want to go.
Right.
But I find that the more I speak about certain aspects of it, the more it resonates with people. So yeah, that's my
Right.
story.
I like it. I like it. So let's talk about diversity in luxury awards. What is that, and what is the goal? What is the purpose?
Okay, so 2020, we know what happened, in America,
Yeah.
and it spread. I think something just sparked and it resonated a lot with many of us Black people around the world. So I remember, because again, during the pandemic, we're all at home. There was nothing to do. I joined Clubhouse, and I was looking for a luxury business room, and I couldn't really find one. There were so many on lifestyle, go and buy this bag, go and do this, go and do that, but there was nothing on business. So I created my room, and I had a couple of people join me, and it was doing really well. And then I remember thinking, how come we don't see, when it comes to luxury, we don't see many people of color being represented either in boardrooms. During 2020, some people posted black squares, but for me, that wasn't enough. The change had to be more far-reaching. So I remember Googling, is there any diversity in luxury? Just out of curiosity. And I read a paper by a professor from Penn State University in America. And she said, no, there's no diversity. So I then thought, okay, let's find out. Is it true or is it not true? And I found actually that there are pockets of diversity, but what is happening is that they're not being highlighted. So what do I mean by that? So, for example, nobody outside of America had really heard about Bethan Hardison. Incredible lady. She was a model, a black model, during the Battle of Versailles, where you had French designers and American designers battle in France. And the Americans won. Actually, it was like life changing, because the Americans won, and the Americans brought the most black. This was the time when you could find the most black models on the catwalk. Now, Bethan Hardison was one of them. If you hear of models like Iman, Naomi Campbell, Victoria Webb, Bethan Hardison gave them their big break in luxury fashion, right? So I discovered people like her. I discovered a needlecraft school in India that does embroidery for Dior as well as Hermes. Nobody had ever heard of that needlecraft school. So I was discovering so much, and I was thinking, you mean we have this much diversity in luxury? And I thought, what I'm going to do is create an awards that honors and highlights all this incredible work in luxury. Because here's the thing about luxury. People of color spend up to 40% more on luxury goods and services. Yes. Wow. This was a study in America. Black people, Latinos, Asians spend 40% more on an industry where we are not that much represented. So that was important to me to highlight everything that anyone of color, people around the world. I decided to make it global, not just UK based or America based or European based. I went everywhere: China, Africa, India, South America, Australia, just to find examples. And apart from the awards, we also have, I founded the Diversity in Luxury Leaders List. So the 100 people, diverse people who are making a difference in luxury. So for me, that was the story behind that.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. You went all over the world, huh?
Yeah, all over just to find examples. And the judges I chose, I made sure that there was proper representation, because I wanted everyone to feel included. Yeah.
So I hear you spoke in 30 cities worldwide.
Yes.
What insights, probably more now, right? Like, what insights have you gained about cultural differences in luxury markets?
Oh my God, that is another book in and by itself. So for and I include some of those cultural insights in my book, The Luxpreneur, as well. So for example, in Chinese culture, everybody knows that, okay, the color red is auspicious. they have these money envelopes every Chinese New Year. They have these money
Okay.
envelopes, etc. But having worked with in events, for example, some Chinese cultures, when a couple gets married, they have something called a lucky lady. So a
Mm-hmm.
lucky lady is an
A
older
lucky lady.
lady. Yep, lucky
Uh-huh.
lady. She's an older lady that she's a lucky lady that married, has children, and can stand almost like stand as an advisor to the
Mm-hmm.
couple. And a lot of people that work at events, they don't understand the power that this lucky lady can have. So she can decide if
Uh-oh.
your services are going to be lucky or auspicious to the couple or not.
Mm.
So in China, it's very much family, very
Yeah.
much filial piety. You've got to be loyal to your family. There's a concept of faith. You don't want to do anything that will make your parents lose faith, etc., etc.
Right, right.
In Arab cultures, for example, they're very generous, very warm, and a lot of people have so many misconceptions about, oh, as a woman, can you do business in the Middle East? And
Mm-hmm.
actually, it's better for a woman to do business in the Middle East because the women are the silent power behind the throne in the Middle
Mm.
East. So if you're a woman, you are able to meet a man as a foreign woman. You can meet men and you can also meet women. But
Mm-hmm.
if you are a man, you can only meet
Meet the
men,
men. Yeah.
especially if the family is ultra conservative.
Yeah.
And in the Middle East, national days are sacred. So, like you have Independence Day, etc.
Right.
Their national days are of apps. I mean, the things that the government will do, competitions, it's on a
Yeah.
level. So again, culture is, to me, it's one of the
Mm.
most beautiful things because it can really bind us together
Yeah.
as a whole if we
Mm-hmm.
let it, rather than be afraid of other people's culture.
You think after all of these years of existence and books and the internet that we realize that, right? All of these different
Right.
cultures just embracing it. The United States was supposed to be this melting pot of all these different, cultures. And we miss opportunities. We
Yeah.
just really miss opportunities. It's sad. But
No.
anyway, I won't speak about anything too sad. You told me that earlier, right now. Hey, look, I spent over 20 years in the military.
Oh, wow.
And when I transitioned out of the military, it was mentally draining because after spending a career doing one thing, that's what you're kind of used to.
Yeah.
I did go to this agency or this service, these people who are invested in my success and other transitioning military members' success at transitioning. And one of the things that they taught us is, look, you don't have to be limited to what it was that you did in the military. You could do basically anything, right? The first thing you have to do is get the idea that you want to do it. Then you need to determine what the gaps are from where you are now to where you want to be. So I say all of this for a transitioning service member looking to enter the luxury space. What are the first three things that they should focus on?
First of all, let me say thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And also, being an ex-military, you don't even understand the advantages that you have if you're transitioning into luxury. Number one, the discipline. Number two, for a number of personnel, the eye for detail. And
Yeah.
number three, the ability to give really great service. So that's, and also the almost formality of a veteran actually lends itself into dealing with luxury clients politely and firmly. Yes. So I think for me, that's how I would look at it. So
Yeah.
I said, so the first thing I said was the discipline, right?
Mhm.
And being able to, because if you let's think about it. Let's take a step back. When you go into a luxury store, what is the first thing that hits you? when you walk into a luxury store. The first thing that hits you is how clean and organized the lines, the colors, everything in its place. That is a quality that being in the military lends itself to straight away. Also, when you walk into an environment like that, many luxury brands, they have their own house codes, right? The same way the military has its own code of conduct, has its own rules and regulations. So each brand has its own house codes. That would be easy for you to memorize. Or if you're trying to set up your own brand, your own luxury brand, it'll be easy for you to say, okay, what's going to be my house codes? What's going to be my values, my ethics? So these are things you can readily and easily do. And then the third thing around, detail, eye for detail, things being in place, etc., etc.
I know.
Because that is seriously, that for me, that is a few of the things, excuse me, few of the things that luxury is. Because luxury, I say to people, luxury is about consistency. You're delivering to a high standard over and over and over again. I'll give an example. I remember when I was a headhunter, I had a candidate, and he was he was the head of the naval officer. So he was the head. And he had his own ship. And he had about, 1,000 men or something under him. And I looked at his CV, and it was all Navy, 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 Navy. So I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to turn you into the CEO of a corporation. And that's what we did. We took out the word Navy. It was a blind CV. So I created for him a blind CV. I took out the word Navy, and it was simply CEO. They do this, they do that, they do blah, 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 blah. And he got at least 10 times more eyes on his CV than he would have if he put Navy, 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 Navy.
Right.
So those are some of the things that an ex-military person can think about.
Yes.
You can say, I work for a multi-billion national.
Yeah, you could, right?
I work for one of the biggest organizations in the world.
Yeah.
And then they tell the story, and at the very end might say something like, and guess what, it was the army. But by then, people are already sold. So you need to show that adaptability in your CV or in your story or whatever. So, but if you lead with army, 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 that scares people sometimes, because people are like, army people, they're a bit rugged, but don't lead with that. Lead with, I work for the biggest organization in the world, and this was the impact that I made, and people will buy into that.
Great advice. And I tell you why I say great, five greats, because I did my resume as well. And one of those individuals that I said was invested in my success, he took my resume and he reworded it. He redid it. And as soon as I put that resume out, I started getting calls, because I'm not going to say I didn't know how to really write my resume to resonate in a civilian capacity. I was dealing with the military for 20 years, right? So that is a great advice.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Hey, what's one piece of advice that you wish you had when you started working with luxury clients?
I think, the one thing would be to not be scared, not be fearful, and also to know that my opinions are valid. So if they don't like something, just because they don't like it doesn't mean it's not a great thing. So I would say to not be fearful, my opinions are valid, and to really just go for it, really. Because sometimes in the luxury space, people don't realize, I think people already think that everything that needs to be done has been done in that space, but that's not the case. And it's not the case at all. But remember, luxury is sometimes, some luxury is about gatekeeping, and it's about learning a new language. And once you know the language, everything becomes easy peasy. So
Yeah,
it's a learning process. So don't be afraid to learn new things.
man. Yeah, and adjust
Yeah,
and be
exactly.
agile. I tell you what, when some person said, if you grab they could how do they word it? I'm overly simplifying this message, but they were talking about having a map. They say you can have a map that will get you where you want to go, a Chicago map that will get you where you want to go in a place in Chicago. But you
Yeah.
can't take that same map and apply it to trying to find that space in Maryland. I'm from Maryland and over here. It's on the East Coast. So you have to be agile, you have to be able to adjust, and you have to try to, be open, be open to kind of, first of all, know who you are, try to know what you don't know. That's the hard part, knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
And then learning that, right? Filling in that gap.
Yeah.
And in the military, coming out of the military, you create these other stories that I like to talk about. You create these mental stories about things that haven't happened yet,
Yeah.
right? And they kind of scare you, to your point, right? Having more confidence in yourself,
Yeah.
knowing that they can only say yes or no, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I think lastly that you learned a lot of that from that sales on the job training, right? I need to do 100, understanding that the majority are going to say no.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
what is your goal? You still need to meet your goal, right? So, all right, I'm sorry.
No.
Say,
I think that's a great conversation, actually, because you just
yeah,
reminded me of something. Because
yeah,
when I was doing that, I was told that a 90% failure rate was actually good. That if you fail 90% of the time, and usually in school, it's the other way round, right?
right.
90% is great. But we were told, oh my God, 90% failure rate was excellent because that
Hmm.
means you got through to 10 people out of 100.
Yeah,
So well done.
I know. It's a whole different mentality.
Exactly, because our business is not a volume business. In a volume business, even 90% failure is still great.
Hmm. Hmm.
Talk less of a business where it wasn't a volume business. It was based on relationships and trying to get into diaries and trying to evade executive assistants. Some CEOs have 3 executive assistants that you have to
Hmm.
get through to in order to get to them. So again, even failing at that is actually, it's not the failure, it's about the lessons. And I think that's your point.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also the lessons, I'll say this lastly. I think you mentioned it earlier. There was a no, but it turned into a yes, like, because you planted a seed in their mind. So you got to go through the whole thing. And just because you get a no, don't lose your daggone mind about it, right? You still go through, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, right? You've already planted a seed in them. And that's something that's going to stay with them. It's going to be with them, right? And eventually it may come back. You know what? That young lady, she did come through with an amazing opportunity, amazing product, or we have this event that's happening. And she really, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't know what people are in that time. You don't know what they're experiencing, what they're going through. So a no is not always a no. So keep that in mind too. Don't lose your mind when you hear a no. It's just a learning opportunity.
I
So
completely agree. And I
yeah,
always see that a no could be a not yet, um,
not yet.
a not yet
Hmm.
or a never.
It could be, yeah, exactly, and be okay with either or.
Exactly.
Be okay. So you said you wrote some. Did you write some books?
Before my book, The Luxpreneur,
Yeah.
I'd written a book on cakes called Opulencia.
Uh-huh.
And that did really well. So it was to celebrate my 10 years of making cakes. That was many, many years ago,
Yeah.
nearly 10 years ago, actually, I wrote that book,
Okay.
Opulencia. So that was my first foray into
Hmm.
writing. So that was a different book because it was about cakes. But this particular, my latest book is more on the business side of things.
Yeah. So you were ready. You got some experience. Once again, you got some experience with your other one. So when it came time to write Luxpreneur, you was ready. So what was that experience like for you? And what should readers be looking to take from that book?
Right. Luxpreneur was a different experience because obviously, nearly 10 years ago, social media wasn't such a thing. Podcasts weren't
Hmm.
such a thing. And also writing a business book is completely different because I'm not writing. Yes, I'm writing the book that I want to write, but it's not about me. My
Mm.
book is about the reader. So so I had to sit down and say, okay, this book, why are you writing the book? Number one, what's your why? And also, what do you want people to get out of it? So I had to really sit down and really rethink. And the thing about writing a business book is my one big tip is you need to get an editor that will challenge your beliefs. I got an editor that knew nothing about luxury, but I said to him, if you come into it, you need to act like you want to know about luxury. So you know nothing. So at the end of the book, are you more knowledgeable than when you started the book? Or is the book not telling you anything you don't know already?
Right.
And so that was a number. I would say it was a pretty high goal for me, but the process of it was a lot more tortured because I had to think and rethink and think and rethink. And, I had to bring my scientist thing in. I had to check studies because if I'm making an assertion, I need to check studies that back it up. Or if the studies don't exist, I need to be able to back it up when I defend some of those ideas. And thankfully, everyone who read the book said it was fantastic. And more importantly, a lot of luxury experts say that it actually is a blueprint to, if you want to set up a luxury brand or even any old brand, just grab Elizabeth's book because I take people through it. I start with I start with a person. I start with the different types of luxury brands out there. I also end with the clients because I didn't realize that not many luxury books say a lot about the clients. Many luxury books are written by professors of luxury or luxury experts, and they're very well written and, beautifully done, but they're not written from a founder's perspective. When you're a founder, your perspective is different. The days of having no money, but wanting to get that PR, and there are certain things that can only come from a founder perspective. Kind of wrote the book that if Coco Chanel were alive, or if Gucci were alive, or if Louis Vuitton were alive, what kind of book and what kind of advice will they give to fellow founders? Yeah.
The blueprint.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it. Hey, so really quick, I asked you a few questions.
Okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to mention that maybe we didn't touch on?
No, I mean, you've already spoken about diversity in luxury. I'm very happy about that. We've mentioned my book. I'm very, very happy about that. And you spoke up my speaking, so I'm happy about that too. But no, I thought I thought your opening question about mindset, that was one of the best questions I've had from a podcaster ever, because many people never think about the mindset as foundation to everything. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy.
All right. I got a little blush going on right there. Hey, so where can the listeners find out more about you and your work?
Okay, so the place I'm on right now is LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. And every day I try to write something about luxury that would help people. And this month in particular, because in solidarity with Black History Month in America, and in light of the fact that we know what's happening with DEI, I'm posting every day about Black Hero. Every day I'm doing it for the rest of February. So in solidarity, I'm doing that. But I'm also posting normal content on luxury brands, etc. So you can find me on LinkedIn as Elizabeth Solaru. You can also find my book on Amazon.com. For those in America, Amazon.com.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Elizabeth. This has been an incredible conversation for me. Hope it was for you as well. We've unpacked the psychology of luxury clients, the transition from corporate to high-end branding, and the future of luxury. Actually, we didn't talk about the future of luxury. That's something that I didn't get to, and I apologize. Hey, we got a couple minutes. What's the future of luxury?
Oh, okay. So, in 3 words, the future of luxury, women, technology, and culture, which is
Mm,
diversity. So that's the
yeah.
three. Women are going to buy more. Technology, AI, etc., is already having an impact. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
come to a point where handmade things are going to be a premium. And then culture, which is different cultures around the world. Already we're seeing an influence, China not spending as much and
Mm.
luxury losing 15 million customers last year, according to Bain and
Wow.
McKinsey. Even Bain and McKinsey are saying diversity, diversity, diversity is the key to the future of luxury. And by diversity, obviously, we mean women, we mean culture, and we
Mm-hmm.
mean technology. So, yeah. So that's a
Mm.
quick summary.
There it is. Hey, so much experience, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. It has really been a pleasure speaking with you today. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Awesome. And for those of you listening, if you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe to Hindsight the podcast so you don't miss future conversations with industry leaders like Elizabeth. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button? No, not right there. Over to the right. No, down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.